that is sustainable. Before I go on a side note, we talked about carbon footprint. There's another thing called ecological footprint, which I'm not going to touch up on in this presentation, and that is everything that the UAE or country uses, be it from the food imports to everything that is necessary in order to sustain our lives. The UAE has the highest ecological footprint in the world, and the equivalent stat is that the UAE, in order to survive, if all countries in the world were like the UAE, we need 6 planets to keep up. Because practically everything is imported, right? All of our food, everything, it's not a sustainable country. So what's the opportunity? 72% of the electricity that we use is in buildings, which gives us something to think about. If we were to reduce the energy consumption in buildings like these, we can save a lot of energy. What's the opportunity? I want you to think about this. If the UAE reduces electricity consumption by just 10%, right? 10%, we can power the entire country of Yemen, right? If each of us go home and we raise our electricity, our thermostat on our AC by just 1 degree Celsius, we can generate enough electricity to power 47 people in developing countries for an entire month. So look at what poorer countries are doing. The reason we have this resource curse is because the UAE is so rich. If you look at a poorer country, Bangladesh, they implemented a policy that says no one is allowed to go into work with a suit and tie. Why do they do that? Because if no one's wearing a suit and tie, they're less hot. Therefore, the ACs don't have to work as hard to keep people cool, right? So when you're forced to be efficient, you are efficient because you have no money. When you're not forced to, like we are over here with the luxury of money, nobody really cares. And that's what we're trying to change. Now we're looking at waste. The UAE's waste increased by 16% from 2000 to 2009. Right? It's incredible. It's not slowing down. So what's the opportunity when we talk about waste? If you take 1 square kilometer of trash, you can generate 3.5 megawatts of power. So what does that mean? It's enough energy to supply 1,900 homes. That's in 1 square kilometer, okay, of landfill. The UAE, specifically Dubai, this is the Qusais landfill. Qusais landfill alone is 3.5 square kilometers. 1 square kilometer can power 1,900 homes. This is Qusais, 3.5 square kilometers, and that's one of 3 landfills in Dubai alone. Add in Sharjah and Abu Dhabi, etc., etc. There's a lot of waste in this country that's being produced, and a lot of waste that's not being tapped into for potential source of energy. Some ways I want you to think about in terms of actually making a difference. These are some conservation measures that you can think about. Pull printing, right? Whereas instead of just printing from your computer, you click print, it works. You actually send it to a server, you go in, you swipe your card, then you get your printed paper out of it. It helps conserve paper because a lot of people print and waste. They double print, etc., etc. This gets people more aware. They track their printing, they charge people for printing, etc. Other ways, even when you're printing, use recycled paper. Right? Recycled paper uses so much less carbon emissions. There's a lot of water that goes into actually producing the paper itself. Right? The other thing is in recycling. We need to segregate our waste. So instead of just throwing everything into a landfill, you segregate the paper, you segregate the plastic and the cans, and then you start recycling them. Decreases your waste, and then you reuse this resource into other products later on. And lastly is in reusing products. And this is just one example of mugs, but it's something that you need to think about for reusing products across everything you do. Right? From paper, from plastic bags in the supermarket to mugs, reuse everything. It's one of the fundamental concepts that we need to think about here. So let's talk about water a little bit. Water, this is a pie chart of water consumption in the UAE. 44% of the desalinated water in the UAE is going to residential use, right? Which tells us that if we were to make a difference at home, we can actually significantly affect our water consumption as a nation. Each person in the UAE uses 550 liters of water per day, right? If you think about that, it is shocking. 550 liters of water per person per day, which is 4 times of what they use in Europe, right? So what's the opportunity here? If everyone here reduces our water consumption at home by just 20%, okay, just 20% reduction of water consumption, we can supply 6 people in Ethiopia with water, right? So a 20% decrease in our water consumption can supply 6 people. Just to give you, again, an order of magnitude of how inefficient we are and how much we take these resources for granted. These are some resource measures that you can implement very quickly. Waterless urinals that you can put in, I mean, for example, in the university, some simple things like the aerators. I mean, it's simply, like, it's a device that costs just a few dirhams. You put it in and it reduces your water consumption by about 30%, right? Incredible savings by very simple measures. The other thing is in water consumption that we drink. Bottled water. The UAE uses each person drinks 285 liters of bottled water per year, each person. This is the highest in the world, right? Number one. Keep the stats, keep it going. We want to be number one in everything, right? Even in the things we shouldn't be number one in. So what's the opportunity? If we all change our water to use water filters, they provide clean water, right? The municipalities here provide you with desalinated water that is very clean. And though it's tested, the problem is in the pipes. Some of the pipes are dirty, some of them rust, you don't know how old they are, etc. You can just put a filter, a simple water filter on every single faucet at home, and you can drink that water. It takes away anything that could have been coming out of the actual pipes.
The quality is still the same.
The quality is a diva claim. It's more than good enough to drink.
So you're saying you can drink from tap water?
Now you can drink from tap water. The thing is the minerals. Now I'm not saying you should drink only from tap water, because minerals have to be added to make it potable, right? Because desalinated water does not have the minerals that is necessary. Now there are a lot of studies done on potable water, on mineral water, etc. Some people say it's fine, you don't have to have the minerals. Other people say no, it's going to cause health concerns. I'm not saying drink only tap water, but you don't have to drink only bottled water, right? You can mix it up a little. It's not going to hurt to drink some tap water, as long as you have filters, proper filters that are used. Right? You don't want to drink tap water that you have, rust, etc. coming from the pipes. But also think about reusing bottles. So if you're going to use bottled water, bring in the jugs, right, that are always reused. Those jugs go back, they refill them, etc. You're not constantly creating new plastic. And most of the time, the plastic that we're dumping them into the trash, and they're not recycled. Right? So think about the entire value chain of what we're doing here. Right?
They say that it's not good to reuse the plastic.
For a certain period of time. But I'm not saying use them for years on, but use them a few times. At least, if you use it just 3-4 times, you're reducing your waste by, if you use it 5 times, you're reducing your waste by 80%, right? Your 20% consumption. So simple measures.
Yeah, we can also in the bottles there is like a triangle, there's a number inside. So it's one, it's dangerous too.
Okay.
It's fine, it's fine.
Okay. That's great. I didn't know that. That's great to know. So you can get the same water, like I was saying, from filtered water from the taps at 0.3% of the carbon emissions. There's so much energy and carbon emitted just by producing one bottle of water. It's not just in the water itself, but it's also in producing the plastic and in shipping it and transporting, etc., etc. It goes on and on. And another simple measure: if you ever go to a restaurant, order local water. You're flying in Evian from God knows where in France just because it's a fancy name, but think about all the carbon emissions that go into just flying water over from a country that's 6-7 hours away by plane. Right? So even though bottled water is bad, at least go for the worst of two evils, which is buying local water instead of buying imported bottled water. And think about the plastic. This comes again into what we're trying to do here, is reduce waste. 60% of litter on beaches is plastic. If you look at the oceans, I mean, you have 46,000 pieces of plastic debris per square mile of ocean. Right? Plastic is everywhere. You can see some of the pictures of turtles eating plastic, etc. It's shocking.